At its core, the Kirby series is designed for beginners, something for kids to get a handle on as they learn the mechanics of video games. That's been the entire idea since its inception. But what's truly clever is how each game includes a more challenging element to test the skills learned, whether it's the second playthrough in Kirby's Dream Land, the more complex moves for each ability in Kirby Superstar, or the true arenas introduced in Kirby Superstar Ultra. However, the transition to 3D always seemed just out of reach, as it is inherently more difficult than 2D for completely new players. But with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, HAL is finally ready to take that step. And if this is a taste of what they can do, then the future is looking bright. What makes Forgotten Land so impressive is seeing where the game took a step back while also moving forward, truly thinking about what would work best for the series in 3D. This isn't some wide-open adventure in the vein of Super Mario 64 or Odyssey, it's more like the level-to-level progression of Super Mario 3D World. In many respects, Forgotten Land feels like it takes the 2D level design and simply widens it to fit a 3D plane. And that did lessen the initial impact for me. It felt like too much of a half step after so long. But what I failed to realize was that the game's gradual increase in complexity is near perfect. Each level either expands on what came before or introduces something completely new, and that applies to copy abilities as well. The simpler the mechanics, especially in a 3D space, the earlier it's shown. But it doesn't take long at all to see them all, as there are only 12. It comes across as a surprisingly thin offering at first, especially compared to the 27 in Planet Robobot and 28 in Star Allies. But each one serves a purpose, as there are many puzzles in each level designed around them, gradually teaching the player how to use each one. One needs to look no further than the two new abilities, Ranger and Drill. Both take advantage of the 3D space and encourage full movement in new players, with Ranger able to shoot distant objects and Drill encircling enemies for greater damage. And this gradual increase in complexity also ties into the upgraded abilities, which can increase their power, speed, or both, while adding new moves to take advantage of. One of the biggest surprises I actually encountered in the Forgotten Land was the lack of ability move lists. In most games before, the pause menu would break down everything a move could do and the button inputs necessary to pull them off. But here, there's nothing as comprehensive as that. The weapon shop Waddle Dee provides some advice, but it's not complete, which encourages players to try different combinations themselves. I have the basics, but what more can I do? That experimentation is truly fun. And that idea of seeing what will be introduced next is taken even further thanks to the new Mouthful mode, which is as good a time as any to break down the story of the Forgotten Land. It begins as any other on Planet Popstar, with Kirby riding on his Warp Star until a massive portal appears in the sky, sucking everything in, including himself. He finds himself on the shores of an unknown world where a group known as the Beast Pack begin abducting Waddle Dees and attempt to kidnap a creature called Elfalin. Kirby is able to save him and sets out to save the Waddle Dees, learning along the way that the process of the dimensional hop warped his body, allowing him to swallow large objects and use their unique traits. This is a Kirby story though, and while a plot may start out simple, there's always at least a tinge of something incredible by the end. It might be lore, a character revelation, or simply an awesome set piece, and Forgotten Land is no different. The revelations are solid, with implications that Kirby lore fans will be eating up for quite some time. But this setup is what allows for many of the best new features in the game, and the one at the forefront was the Mouthful mode. There are 14 different objects Kirby can take control of throughout the game, and I was amazed at how well they're iterated upon. There's something inherently fun about driving around as Car-Mouth Kirby from the moment I took control, and it's certainly presented as the premier form. Races, platforming challenges, busting through walls, it runs the gamut and never wears out its welcome. The same can be said for the other forms. Some are simpler than others, acting more as fun set pieces, but they're great set pieces. It's exhilarating controlling Coaster Kirby as the camera zips around the track. It's satisfying using Water Balloon Kirby to wash away grime and discover secrets. And it's surprising how often Stair Kirby is utilized for puzzles that somehow don't wear out their welcome. They're simple, but serve as a fantastic way to break up the action, and I never found myself bored or groaning at the thought of having to control one. This naturally leads into the other big inclusion in Forgotten Land: special challenges for each level. There are 300 Waddle Dees to find out there, and while some are obtained by simply beating the level, others must be found in hidden spaces or completing certain challenges. They start simple enough, like finding 5 red tulips in a level, but can get pretty perplexing as time goes on. I'd explore every nook and cranny of a level to discover these hidden challenges, and many times I missed one or two. Thankfully, beating the level reveals one hidden challenge, guiding the player to discovering what they missed. A revisit can easily clean up those Waddle Dees, but this does lead to replaying levels over and over, especially if you miss them more than once. What helps is that the levels aren't too long, with most being completed in about 3 or 4 minutes if you blast through. It could be annoying for some, but I appreciated the challenge to explore everything or come back to a boss fight with a specific ability. What I found myself disappointed in was how little the Waddle Dees seemed to matter. Kirby's home base is Waddle Dee Town, and as he continues his journey, more and more of it will be rebuilt. Maybe it's my own expectations, but I thought every location would require a certain amount of Waddle Dees to expand, rewarding my completionist effort. Instead, it only applies to a handful of places, while the rest are built up as the story progresses. It's great for those who don't want to bother with the Waddle Dees, but earning new shops and minigame locations felt lackluster most of the time. That's just me wanting a bigger pat on the back though, as the rest of what Waddle Dee Town represents is fantastic. Rather than going through menus to reach 100% completion, everything that's required for that is found in the game itself. There's a menu to continue your game, and that's about it. And this provides context that I enjoyed immensely. There are 3 main minigames to be found in town: serving food, fishing, and a tilting ball puzzle. This is no different to the extra modes in past Kirby games, but having them here makes them feel more coherent somehow. It's not all separate, but one big adventure. The minigames themselves are fine, with each featuring ramped up difficulty that gave me some challenge, but it was the fishing that really got me for a while. This was some of the most precise button timing I've ever seen in a Kirby, and the requirement for the ultimate fish took me a while to nail down. The stores in town sell food that can be eaten in a level for instant recovery, an item shop where Kirby's speed, power, or health can be boosted temporarily, and the weapon shop where copy abilities can be upgraded. Every shop takes star coins, but the upgraded abilities require 2 more items: a blueprint and a rare stone. The blueprints are found hidden in the stages themselves, but each stage beaten also unlocks special Treasure Road challenges. Here, the player is asked to use a certain ability in order to beat a challenge in a certain amount of time. Upon the first completion, a rare stone is given. None are that hard to obtain the rare stone in, but each also has a target time that rewards extra star coins. While not required at all, these target times can be quite difficult to pull off, requiring players to know exactly how each ability and mouthful mode works. So that's how Kirby and the Forgotten Land plays in an overall sense. Looking at it in the most basic of terms, it updates Kirby quite well into 3D and would be considered generally good. But once again, it's the complexity that I find myself engrossed in. World 1 is a fine introduction to the basics. World 2 expands upon those ideas and finishes showing every ability. World 3 is where levels grow more complex, imaginative, and absorbing. World 4 amps up the music and theming, providing a hint of how much more the combat is capable of. World 5 opens up even further with some of the biggest levels, and World 6 brings everything to a climactic head that feels wholly satisfying. It's not like this is revolutionary or anything, it's just incredibly well done. Likewise, the level design, owing to this new world, has a different feel to it. It's more natural than most other Kirby games, with each platforming element being diegetically worked into the level. Locations don't just float, they hang in the air due to something else, unless it's an element specifically pulled over from Planet Popstar, further showing how different the two are. The game looks nice at first, but the art design kicks into overdrive as time goes on. There are some vistas that left me gobsmacked with how great they looked. It's a shame then that a lot of background details run at a lower frame rate, which doesn't necessarily hurt the game, but does take me out of the moment when I see them. The music is also great across the board, again ramping up and becoming even better with each new world. The through line of the main theme in most songs never got old either, and is still stuck in my head. However, there's an element here that I fully believe is the key to what makes Forgotten Land such a blast to play. Nintendo didn't advertise it, and the game fails to mention it, but Kirby has a perfect dodge and counter system, and upon discovering it, every boss fight changed for me. By simply blocking and flicking in a direction just before the enemy hits, Kirby will dodge out of the way while the action slows down. Attacking in this moment unleashes a more powerful standard attack from the copy ability you're using, and, depending on the fight, can really unleash the pain. I went from floating and running from every attack to dodging and taking advantage of enemy patterns in a way I never have in Kirby before. And it's rewarded too, making the challenge of beating each boss without taking damage much easier than they would be otherwise. Thankfully, I stumbled upon the technique by the fourth world, and it served to make every boss after it even more exciting. And I honestly can't imagine challenging the final boss without it now. It's a fantastic fight and made all the better by an exciting postgame and a solid coliseum. I loved fighting bosses with the technique, and honestly, I really want to see more bosses added as DLC just so I can take them on too. I've never been invested in combat in a Kirby game, so this caught me completely off guard and made me realize how it naturally pushed me to experiment and discover it. I know that's not the case for everyone, but the ramp up was so satisfying. I don't know if Kirby and the Forgotten Land is my new favorite in the series. There are some major steps forward here even beyond the move to 3D, but I'm not sure if it reaches the highs of some of my favorites. It's absolutely a top 3 entry and an easy recommendation to any Kirby fan. Non-fans will have to decide for themselves, but I think the payoffs are worth the easy start. More than anything, I think this is the perfect beginning that can be iterated upon in much the same way Return to Dreamland led to Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot. I firmly believe it'll only get better from here, and I can't wait to see how HAL expands upon these ideas. But what are your thoughts on Kirby and the Forgotten Land? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, consider checking out our Patreon over at patreon.com/dvgaming. Of course, we appreciate all your support, whether it's just hitting the like button, subscribing to Good Vibes Gaming, or ringing the bell. Until next time, bye!